My first ever Pokemon game was Pokémon Colosseum, and I grew up with that game. I didn't even know there was a sequel called Pokémon XD, and that, I would say, is my favorite game. So you can argue that the campaign in XD is straight up easier than Colosseum, and a lot of people would agree, but you could argue that it's also worse. In my opinion, I think whether it's a show, movie, video game, a sequel's job is to flesh out the foundation of whatever came before it. And I think XD does a wonderful job. I could talk about how there's graphic upgrades to it, the different myriad of shadow moves besides Shadow Rush, a 90 base power move that hits everything and does recoil, and that was it. Wasn't very fleshed out, but Pokemon XD added a myriad of shadow moves and mechanics, such as, shadow Pokemon now resist other shadow moves, so you could use shadow Pokemon to tank shadow moves, and they're also super effective shadow moves on every other Pokemon. So these fighting machines actually feel like fighting machines. I could spend forever talking about Battle Bingo. I could spend forever talking about the Battle Sim. And I love those two mechanics. But for this video, I want to dive deeper. I want to get into the niche grains of Pokemon XD with you. And if you're here right now listening to this, you probably really like the game or you find it interesting. In Pokemon XD in particular, there are a lot of special moves that you cannot get outside of Pokemon XD. You have a bunch of Pokemon with Baton Pass and Helping Hand, and you even have Follow Me on Magmar. Come on, Follow Me on Magmar. That's pretty cool. But what I love personally, Helping Hand Togetic. You could use Earthquake and Helping Hand in doubles, and Earthquake doesn't hurt Togetic. Come on, that's really cool. If you're building competitive Pokemon, a lot of these Pokemon also have their egg moves, or they have TM slapped onto them. Think about Kangaskhan and Tauros. They already have Earthquake, and you only get one Earthquake TM per playthrough. So if you're not going to clone it, or you don't have access to the ever-expensive Pokemon Emerald, getting a great deal of $250 plus shipping, yeah, no way. If you don't have access to that, good luck, by the way, then you're going to breed Tauros with a Ditto, and then now you have Earthquake. You have infinite Earthquake on this new Tauros. You have infinite Earthquake on Kangaskhan. What if I want Curse on Snorlax without going through the whole egg move process? Okay, well, now I have Curse on my Snorlax. And you should be able to get a male one, but yeah, there's even like Dragonite with Earthquake, and I'm just saying a bunch of Earthquake, but Earthquake is a hard to acquire move after all. Speaking of Dragonite, you get a Heal Bell. If you have a Lapras, you get a Heal Bell. I believe Articuno also gets Heal Bell. That's the only way you could get it. So once per save file, you get these rare Pokemon. They're already evolved too. So I think I've discussed attacks, egg moves, special moves enough. Now, I want to talk about something else. Duking. Duking is the man who ran Pyrite Colosseum. In Pokemon Colosseum, you can see he's having a lot of trouble running the Colosseum and is blackmailed because his Plusle is captured by Miror B, who I will talk about later. Anyway, Duking is important for this video because he has special trades, okay? You could get a Medicham with Dynamic Punch, exclusive to this trade. Of course, you could use a Tutor in Emerald, but I'm talking about this trade. You get a Shuckle, and you get a Dragon Dance Larvitar. I promise that's enough about egg moves, but you could dance forever. They say he will never die. Dragon dancing Larvitar. Cool. Anyway, that's besides the point. The duking trades, every time I play Pokemon XD, highlight. Absolute highlight. I want to get one of those Pokemon. For the theme of Pyrite Town, I'm not done yet. I want to talk about Rogue Cail, the guy you bump into in Pokemon Colosseum, and he has a Shadow Ferret that he won from the Colosseum. And I get why he won, because usually his teams are very good. He has fully evolved Pokemon, they're decently strong, and depending on which game you play, he has a different team between Colosseum and XD. So why are you bringing up Rogue Cail? Who cares, right? Well, in Pokemon Colosseum, there's a glitch that isn't talked about much. But you fight him, and many teams in Pokemon Colosseum and XD, as you progress through the story, you come back since battles are repeatable, and their Pokemon evolve, and it's very cool. It shows progression alongside you. However, Rogue Cail, specifically in Colosseum, his team reverts back to their mid stages. So you go from fighting him with a Gardevoir, and then suddenly he has a Curlia and a Nuzleaf instead of Shiftry, right? This only happens in Colosseum, so I'm glad XD rectifies this. Very niche glitch, isn't talked about much, but I wanted to bring that up because it miffs me. There's two more battles that I'd like to discuss besides Rogue Cail, and they're peculiar in a different way. One of them has a sentimental value to me. The other I just find peculiar, as I said, odd. Because both of these battles have a layer of impermanence. They're one-time battles, and that's it. You could never challenge that trainer again in that save file. There's a trainer in front of the laboratory. You could battle him, and that's it. One battle, it's done. But there's another one that stands out even more. Because I have the Phoenix City music. No, it's actually not it. You find one trainer, you fight her, in this empty Colosseum. Otherwise, there's no one there. And then you can't fight her again. I remember she has a Sneasel. I don't remember the other Pokemon, but it stuck out to me because nothing else happens. And I'm wondering why, but there really is no answer. The battle's done. So that's all you get. I may have promised that I would stop talking about egg moves or Shadow Pokemon signature moves or talking about Earthquake and Heal Bell. That's true. But I'm not done yet when I'm talking about Pokemon moves. Because tutor moves in Agate Village, as I used to call Angate Village as a little kid. We all have our weird isms. Anyway, the tutor in Agate Village, or Agate Village, is one of the only ways that you can get moves like Body Slam and Thunder Wave. Yes, you could get those in Pokemon Leaf Green, Fire Red. But those are all one-time usages. Same for Substitute that you could get, and Seismic Toss, a little easier in Emerald. My point is, Agate Village is very special and has that charm in Pokemon XD because you walk inside of a secret cave to the left of the village. Eventually there's this bodybuilder who stands there and constantly gets lost. And you could fight him. And he wanders around most of the village and he's scratching his big head and he's like, "Where am I? Hey!" And you battle him, and I love it. So they add more trainers that you can fight. They renovated the whole visual layout of the village, and it looks visually more sleek. They gave it a new coat of paint, and they moved some waterfalls around. In the bottom left of the village, there's waterfalls and a trainer with a Lotad who actually has relevance at the end of the game. When you do the Lucky Egg side quest, you have to talk to all the trainers in Agate Village, and that Lotad matters. But yeah, I don't want to get too off topic. I love what they did with the whole village, and especially the move tutor and the dude who gets lost. I think he's like me. If I didn't have a GPS, I would be getting lost all over the village too. I couldn't play Expedition 33. I need a map constantly. I need a map glued to my face. For the uninitiated, Poke Coupons are not a form of currency. There is a money system in Pokemon XD and Colosseum, but it's not Poke Coupons. Instead, Poke Coupons allow you to get held items like the Choice Band or King's Rock. Even berries, elusive berries like the Salic Berry and the Pitaya Berry, which are exclusive to Pokemon XD and Colosseum, making them highly coveted competitive items. So, Poke Coupons, how do we get them? You might know about Mount Battle. And I would say Mount Battle is the most consistent way and the best way to get Poke Coupons, albeit very tedious. But it's the most consistent way. And then you have other methods. The Battle Sim, you have to complete all the challenges before you get coupons. And they give you, I think it's 14,000. They give you a lot, nonetheless. That's not a very viable method. I'm not going to recommend it, but it is a method. And then you have Orre Colosseum, which I will discuss later in more vivid detail. But just know it's an option for now. Lastly, Battle Bingo. Self-explanatory. You do bingo challenges. You fight Pokemon, and different spots are organized sometimes by type. So if you go on a water space, it might be a Golduck, it might be a Mantine, and they have one attacking move. It might be a Tentacruel. So those are the three primary ways to get Poke Coupons. Mount Battle from Pokemon Colosseum to Pokemon XD had several notable changes. Namely, the grand prize for completing all of Mount Battle in a row, uninterrupted, with the same party in Pokemon XD is one of the 3 Johto starters, and I believe you need a space in your party for them. They come with their signature elemental hyper beam moves, so think Frenzy Plant, Hydro Cannon, Blast Burn. You're also able to get special egg moves on these 3 starters that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise, because you can't have egg moves and elemental hyper beam in Gen 3. So these egg moves, respectively, are Ancient Power for Chikorita, Crunch for Totodile, and Reversal for Cyndaquil. There's a Mount Battle mode in Pokemon Colosseum where you could get Colosseum's prize, Ho-Oh. You have to beat all of Mount Battle uninterrupted on that mode. You cannot shift your party out. And I've heard, this might be conjecture, that you can't have Game Boy Pokemon set up in your party. You could bring them over to Colosseum first, but you can't load them through the Game Boy to unlock Ho-Oh. If you're able to entirely beat Mount Battle uninterrupted on Pokemon XD, and you get the starter, You also get an Earth ribbon on all the participating Pokemon in your party. This ribbon is sought after solely because it's rare. When people are doing ribbon challenges and trying to get all the ribbons, you have to start out in Pokemon XD and Colosseum. Because Mount Battle is an instrumental method to getting not only some of the rarest Pokemon at the time, namely Ho-Oh, or the 3 Johto starters, but also the ribbon, the Earth ribbon, it needs to be mentioned in a Mount Battle section. Now, there are distinct differences between XD's Mount Battle and Colosseum's Mount Battle. You're going to run into more legendaries in Pokemon XD's Mount Battle. You fight the Regis in Battle 99, where everything explodes in your face, and the trainer also has a Shedinja just to troll you, as all the explosions whiff past it. You fight the legendary dogs in a previous battle, alongside an Espeon and Umbreon. Lastly, the final trainer has Latios and Latias on his team. Battle 100 of Pokemon XD features Latios Slacking, Metagross, Salamence, and Imprisoned Dusclops that removes your ability to use Ice Beam, therefore removing a possibility of countering half his team. Mount Battle in Pokemon XD features Pokemon that are 10 levels higher than the highest point in Pokemon Colosseum. This garners you much more experience between repeated Mount Battle training cycles. And, as I talked about earlier, while you're gaining this experience, you're also farming for coupons. Keep in mind something I didn't say in the coupon section. If you bring a legendary, like Kyogre, Regice, Regirock, whoever, you gain less coupons for winning. Compared to the typical 2,000 you'd win, you get around 300 coupons deducted for every legendary in your party that you win with. Which is very comical because I mentioned there are multiple legendaries on the teams of the opponents you fight toward the latter, the latter half, the last 10 battles you do. There's Entei, Suicune, Raikou. There's all the Regis. So they're not getting any damn coupons, I'll tell you that. Now would be a natural way to segue to my favorite personal training method in Pokemon XD. And I mean Pokemon XD because the Pokemon are roughly 10 levels higher than the ones you'll bump into in Colosseum. That's one. And you're bumping into more legendaries. This opens up an avenue for you once you finish the campaign for Pokemon XD. Why? Well, Pokemon XD grants you Lucky Egg for defeating Lovrina, the first opponent / boss battle of Orre Colosseum. There's a side quest that gives you the Lucky Egg when you're done with it after the main campaign. That Lucky Egg, plus trading over Pokemon from your Game Boy games, you get boosted experience from trading them over, and stacked on top of that, you get Lucky Egg experience. Bring these Pokemon to Mount Battle and fight some of the highest level and highest experience yielding Pokemon you could bump into in Generation 3. Yes, you could do Elite Four runs. I know Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green have some high levels once you re-challenge the Elite Four. That is also a possibility. On the other hand, your Pokemon are not going to be native to this game when you trade them over. It allows a great opportunity to get boosted experience plus the Lucky Egg. And you're beating up legendaries. You're getting a good 3,000 experience plus from a lot of Pokemon, and that's valuable. That is a way to level up without cheesing rare candies and relying on hacking or whatever. It's a good legitimate way to level up your Pokemon through Mount Battle, and I think XD does a better job. And while you're doing all of this, mind you, you're getting 2,000 coupons every cycle. 2,000 coupons, and that adds up quickly. That adds up quickly. For this section, I want to talk about the friendship mechanic in Pokemon XD, Cologne, Shadow Pokemon, and by extension, the oddity that is Togepi. A YouTuber by the name of Hat Function, who I will link in the description, did a study on how Cologne in Pokemon XD affects purification and explicitly friendship. We know how it affects purification because it will lower the shadow gauge to be able to unlock its heart more easily. We know that. But what that video showcases is that colognes do not boost friendship. And typically, this does not matter much. Pokemon XD explicitly and purposely bugs Togepi's base friendship. You can infer that maybe because Hortle gives it to you and another trainer gives it to you. Therefore, its species friendship, its base value, maybe it's lower because trades do reset friendship value. Or the more likely case and obvious case is they make this thing super hard to evolve because you're quote-unquote supposed to give it back. And Hortle does get jealous, and Hortle does want the Togepi back, and he will trade you an Elekid with the elemental punches and cross chop. He will give you an Elekid for it, so if you want to give it back, you can. But it has cool moves. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned Togetic or Togetic. I called it Togetic, forgive me. But I mentioned it, and I said, oh, well, it is Helping Hand. Yes, but it also comes with Tri-Attack. Now, you can give Tri-Attack to Togepi, keep it, transfer it to Gen 4. It's the only way to get Tri-Attack. And you have a special attacking Tri-Attack with Serene Grace, so it ups the chances of freeze, burn, or paralysis. That's fine and dandy. That's so great. Thank you for saying that. That's amazing. But what about its species friendship? Yeah, it's lower than usual. You could get the Soothe Bell in the ONBS building in Pokemon XD. Great. But also, walking around in Pokemon XD is less generous for providing you with friendship values than in the mainline Gen 3 games. So not only is Togepi harder to get friendship with because it's bugged that way, purposely. Not only is it harder, but it's harder to walk around and accrue friendship as well, and the aforementioned Cologne does not give any friendship. And if you want to see the whole Hat Function video, it's long, but it's fantastic, and he deserves more subscribers. In his video, Hat Function shows his Togepi's base friendship value after walking around with it for a while. And I assume that was also while holding the Soothe Bell, and it's 132. Most species of Pokemon in Pokemon XD, when they're purified, go from 70 as a Shadow Pokemon to 140. Therefore, walking around with this Togepi, it still has a lower friendship value than a Pokemon that's just purified out the gate. There was an exception mentioned in the video that Duskull has a lower friendship value or base friendship based on its species starting at 35, and then it jumps to 105 after being purified. Here's the real punchline out of this whole discussion. Togepi needs a friendship value of 220 to evolve. You can give Togepi the Soothe Bell, like we mentioned. You can give it Iron or HP Up or whatever vitamin. That also boosts friendship. And once it's purified, you can teach it TMs to boost friendship while walking around. That's it. And it was still lower after all the walking hat function did than a base value purified Pokemon. So they make this thing an arduous journey to evolve in Pokemon XD. And I thought it was interesting to talk about the nuances of Shadow Togepi because I love it. And I love Togepi and I love Togetic. So I wanted to share that. Lastly on this topic, thank you again to Hat Function for their wonderful in-depth video. Without that video, I wouldn't have been able to present you this information. So check that out. It's a good 35 minutes of just pure Pokemon XD lore. So if you have the time, jump in. A few disclaimers before I get into Shadow Lugia. One, in Agate Village, that trainer with a Lotad was there in Colosseum. I just played through Colosseum. Oops, future me here. So there's that. Two, I'd love to talk about the SS Libra, which is the music in the background right now. I love the ambiance and how all the shadow Pokemon were carried inside of it and transported in the little lore, and you get to explore it, and there's Bondslime. But that is relevant to Shadow Lugia, because at the beginning of this video and at the beginning of Pokemon XD, you see Shadow Lugia carrying a ship, and that is the SS Libra. And there you have Lugia being used already as a weapon, as a tool, etc. Thematic to the game, the theme of a shadow Pokemon. I'd also like to discuss Gatian Port, and maybe I'll touch upon it later. Now with those prefaces out of the way, let's dive into Shadow Lugia. Shadow Lugia is the box legendary for Pokemon XD, and many of you may know about Shadow Lugia, so I'm not going to meander on the topic for 10 minutes. It's mostly common knowledge. It is extremely cool how you're able to get Psycho Boost on Lugia, and this is the only way you could do it. So if you really love Lugia and you want to flex with Psycho Boost, this is your chance. Also, you get Earthquake, you get Hydro Pump, and Feather Dance. Feather Dance defensively is pretty cool, pretty solid. Earthquake, why not? Not complaining about that. And Hydro Pump. Hydro Pump is kind of a staple for Lugia, even though it's not a water type. It's from the sea. With that out of the way, Shadow Lugia, you need 9 full boxes of Pokemon in the Purifying Chamber. So 9 full Purifying Chamber Pokemon boxes. And you put Pokemon that are super effective against each other clockwise. So let's say you have an Aron, okay? And then you have Sandshrew hitting the Aron. But the Aron has to be super effective against what beats the Sandshrew. And you frame it like that 9 times. And then you put Lugia in the Purification Chamber. And that's the process. That's the standard process. I do wholeheartedly recommend you catch wild Pokemon in XD, which is a feature new to XD compared to Colosseum. It will help you so much with filling these boxes, because you don't have to purify as many shadow Pokemon right away. It encourages you to purify them, this system, in order to get Shadow Lugia. However, you don't have to purify all of them if you get Shadow Pokemon and you have Zubat beat up a Skiploom and just order them in a specific way to where it works out. So, all in all, Shadow Lugia and purifying it is one of the most difficult mainline challenges to Pokemon XD. But it is not the final Pokemon, or Shadow Pokemon I should say, that you can catch. There is one more, the Shadow Dragonite. I'm going to talk about the nuances of this Shadow Dragonite next, and who it relates to. A certain character that, if you're familiar with Colosseum and XD, you love this character. I sure do. I love this character so much, the next section is going to be on this character, so here you go. Compared to Pokemon Colosseum, Miror B in Pokemon XD takes more of a backseat role. He's a wandering trainer class now. He's not a Cypher admin, and he was one of the weaker Cypher admins in the original Pokemon Colosseum. By the way, that by no means is meant to slight Miror B, because he has a crazy feat at the end of Pokemon XD that I'll get into soon. For now, Miror B's application in Pokemon XD is meant to be the character that you catch Shadow Pokemon from that you miss. So if you knock out Shadow Magmar, you could fight Miror B and recapture that Shadow Magmar. Depending on the level of the Shadow Pokemon, he'll fight you at Pyrite Colosseum, which has lower level Pokemon in Pokemon XD. He'll fight you at Relgum Tower. So again, it's dependent on the level. Sometimes you could encounter him by the 3 wild Pokespots additionally, which I love. Miror B has one exception. There's a glitch where if you fail to capture Voltorb, it's gone forever. Therefore, that means you can't get the final Shadow Pokemon of the game, Dragonite. And Dragonite is a Pokemon that Miror B was able to snag from the Cypher Key Lair. The fact that Miror B is casually walking around with the strongest Shadow Pokemon alongside his army of Ludicolo makes for a truly epic scene at Gatian Port. This final encounter is a moment I truly love, and I already loved Miror B as a kid. The way he dances with his music. He's just a silly, lovable character. But the final battle against Miror B is legitimately difficult. More difficult than any of his other battles in the series. As I said, he has his Shadow Dragonite, but his Ludicolo are nothing to scoff at either. And it's just an entertaining segment to finish off the Shadow Pokemon journey. And if you're able to catch all of the Shadow Pokemon and purify them, you get a secret cutscene when you re-challenge Greevil at his Citadark Isle little secret lair. But you get a secret cutscene. And that's something I love about the game. It's extremely subtle. You'll probably miss it maybe, but it's a nice nod to purifying all of them. But back to Miror B. He gives you the last Shadow Pokemon. Gatian Port, it is this picturesque seaside town. There is a person in the Krabby Club. I love the Krabby Club and the whimsical music. And when you defeat Miror B, and he has no more Shadow Pokemon to give you, you catch Dragonite. Everything is over. He dances at the Krabby Club. That is his final destination. You could see him dancing with the other dancers. Some people in the crowd have comments to say. But that is his home. That finishes Miror B's journey as the Wanderer. He ends up at Gatian Port dancing at the Krabby Club. And the Krabby Club I love. There's charm to it. The music. And there's a friendship checker if you ever need to check friendship. If you want to evolve that dang Togepi. I just peaked my mic. Tangent aside, Miror B's Japanese name is Mirorbo, which means disco ball. So that's why it sounds silly. Why is his name... I always thought, why is his name Miror B? Like a mirror. I'm looking into a mirror. No, it's Mirabo. But it's translated in a goofy way, akin to a lot of the names in the Pokemon XD and Colosseum series. The names are all silly gibberish. But Mirabo, it has a purpose. It actually makes sense when you think about it. Hello everyone. This is what I would call the EV training segment of this video. And I want to present the fact, the underrated fact. I guess underrated doesn't mean it's a fact, but anyway, I want to present the underrated method of EV training in Pokemon XD. Specifically, speed and HP. I think those two are very productive to train in this game. I'll tell you why in a moment. We could break down the math. Here's my Gengar. I've been breeding. I got it today. And you could see it as Pokerus, PKRS. Because it's Pokemon XD, and this is also in Pokemon Colosseum, there is no timer. There's no in-game clock. So Pokerus is frozen in time. That means it will never spread, but if you have it already, it will activate, and you will gain double your EV yield. And then add that in tandem with a Macho Brace, or in conjunction, whatever word choice you want to use. But it is super effective, no pun intended. A great way to train. And I have it on my Gengar. So, our fellow subject today is Rider Willie, which I like to call Willie Battles, who'll be up playing with their Willie paws. But if you want to transfer Pokerus, you have to do it on the Game Boy games before you do these battles. You want a Pokemon with a spread move like Surf. A strong one. You see how I'm double the level. So you could hit multiple of these Pokemon at once. And this allows you to EV train even the weakest of Pokemon, because Kingdra's just going to knock all of them out. So now to the math that I was talking about earlier. These Linoon have 8 EVs in speed when factoring Pokerus plus the Macho Brace. 8 times 4, because there's 4 of them, 32 speed EVs per battle. And all I have to do with this setup is click Surf twice. Now compare that to fighting a Magikarp. If you're set up with all the bells and whistles on Macho Brace and Pokerus, and you're in Satopolis City just surfing around, you're only gaining 4 speed EVs per battle. This is 32 finished in 2 turns. Granted, double battles are a little slower, but this is also a great way to net EXP, because if you're trading your Pokemon over to XD or Colosseum, in this case XD, this is an XD video, you're getting additional boosted experience. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, you could slap a Lucky Egg on these Pokemon once you're done EV training them. So what I want to show you is that these trainers, as you might know, and this is good for EV training, are re-challengeable. So you don't have to look for a certain Pokemon in the grass. You know Rider Willie always has Linoon, and you always know he has 4, and they're always level 50. It is very consistent. So you're getting a good amount of EXP. You're getting consistent speed EVs, and you're getting a lot. I'm going to knock these out and have 64. I did a previous recording of this where I got 64 very quickly. So in total, that's 128 EVs. And when you EV train, if you're not super well acquainted with EV training, EVs are effort values. And these effort values you garner from fighting Pokemon. I'm not going to go over the whole nuance of EV training. This is an EV training video in itself. But Pokemon have set EV yields, the amount of EVs that they give when you defeat them. And you can multiply that or add that with the Macho Brace and Pokerus. This allows you to get very effective EV yields in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, training is going to be long anyway, so this is a shorter, more efficient route if you have Pokemon XD, you have the Game Boy, and you have a cable that allows you to trade. And the cables that allow you to trade, the trading cables, are not that expensive. You could find one for maybe $15 the most. I thought it was around $10. And look, Gengar's been leveling up, mind you. And I got 5 speed EVs right there. Just make sure you slap on the needed vitamins. I was going to say effective vitamins. I guess they're effective too. Like a calcium, I put 10 calcium on. I put 10 Carbos on to boost speed ahead of time. Because you'll start off with 100 speed EVs at the get-go. So there's that. Here's for the sibling half of this video. Or this segment, I should say. Why'd I call it sibling? Is this like a Siamese twin or something? I guess so. That's my shiny Swampert. My save data and Emerald got all deleted because I was using a flash cart. And I got a real version of Emerald for a great price. And to compensate, I got a shiny Mudkip out of nowhere. It's real. Don't worry about that. But look at this Eevee. It has Pokerus. It has a Macho Brace. I want this one to have HP EVs. So this trainer in the brownish orange costume, you want to fight him. Brow 6. Ignore all the other ones. Because this guy has a Swampert. I'm still thinking about Swampert. This guy has a Slacking and a Noctowl. Defeating both these Pokemon will net you 20 HP EVs with the effective setup of a Macho Brace, and the Pokerus. What's cool about this fight is if you have a Pokemon strong enough, you can OHKO both of these Pokemon in one turn, and then you're done. That's it. In an ideal setup, right? Because this Kingdra has Mystic Water. You could always put Amulet Coin on your assisting Pokemon, like my Kingdra. You could, if you want to. It's just if you think they'll KO or not. Because I just got 2,000. Imagine I got 4,000. And then if you need the heal, because not every setup is perfect, heal right there, PC right there, done. Look at that, beautiful. So, what do we learn? Pokerus freezes. There's no day-night cycle, so you could keep it and it won't go away. As long as you have it here. You could leave them right in your party and it won't go away. You could keep your Pokerus mons right in this game and it won't leave. Very convenient. I sound like I'm sales pitching you guys, and I kind of am. Maybe that's what this whole video is. For the next segment, I'm going to talk about Orre Colosseum and how much I love it and the different strategies in it and what its impact means as a difficult final stage challenge juxtaposed with the Battle Frontier. I'll maybe compare that in passing. So, I'll meet you on the flip side and we'll go over that. To be blunt, Orre Colosseum is the ultimate finale to the Pokemon Colosseum and XD series. It is the most difficult finale that you will get in Gen 3. Because the enemies are scaled to your level, you're never going to have a level advantage, similar to the Battle Frontier. I would say the double battle format, the EV training, and the team composition in Pokemon XD is superior to what you'd face in the Battle Frontier, typically speaking. Yes, you can prepare and know what teams they're going to use in Pokemon XD. On the other hand, the Pokemon are fully EV trained with max speed. This is not always the case in Emerald, and especially not the case in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire's Battle Tower, where natures are random. In Pokemon XD, there is a trainer with legendaries. The legendary dogs and legendary birds on one team. The difference between Pokemon XD's team composition is shown here, because Moltres has hidden power grass. This is not something you see. You could fight Brandon for the gold symbol in Pokemon Emerald. There's no hidden power grass Moltres. So, I believe there's even hidden power on the Articuno. I may be wrong, but the movesets, this max speed you have to contend with, and the fast pace of double battles make Pokemon XD's Orre Colosseum the most challenging endgame, possibly of the whole Pokemon series overall. There are no slouches once you advance. You can fight the admins, the Cypher admins, and of course this video is a spoiler, so if you've never played through Orre Colosseum, don't listen to this part, but you've already spoiled yourself enough with the Lugia section, albeit, right? The first fight is against Loverina, and Loverina's team is what you would call a stall team. It's defensive. She has Wobbuffet, she has a bulky Meganium and Mischievous, and a Blissey. Because she is the first boss in Orre Colosseum, she is also the easiest, and anything with Substitute or that can hit hard enough will be able to dispatch and defeat her. You don't even need a fully EV trained team. You could use your story mode team and hopefully win that. You have Snaddle, the second round's boss. Snaddle you need to be prepared for. Your team should have Protect and or an Explosion, Immunity, or Resist, because Snaddle combines Endure with Explosion and Protect. It's hard to get past this team and survive with all the Explosion and Endure going off, so you definitely need the combination of both, or a Ghost type, or Protect, or everything. Gorrigan, his strategy, he has 6 Pokemon with Intimidate, so leave your attackers, if you have any physical attackers, leave them in the back. Don't lead with your physical attacker, because that physical attacker potentially could get Intimidate dropped 4 times in a row, and your attack is essentially neutered. Chobin. Chobin does a very cool baton pass strategy. So you want to really pinpoint the Mr. Mime that's going for baton pass and make sure none of those shenanigans happen, or Chobin could just steamroll you. Very powerful. Afterward, you fight against Gonzap, and Gonzap's team is my favorite with how creatively it's implemented. Gonzap has the elemental hyper beams like Frenzy Plant, Blast Burn, even Hyper Beam with Slacking, and has a Skarmory to Whirlwind those Pokemon out to nullify their recharge turns. I think that is so cool, and it's fun to fight against it, and the first time I fought against it, it's scary. His team fits Gonzap perfectly. When you fight Gonzap in Pokemon Colosseum, he's not a slouch either, and he has Pokemon with Swords Dance and Hyper Beam, very aggressive, powerful team, strong Pokemon like Pinsir and Gyarados who have high base attacks. So he is nothing to mess with, and he has a very creative spin on that old team that you fight in Colosseum. Lastly, you have Ardos and his brother Eldis, and they don't have a particular strategy, they just have broken Pokemon. Their Pokemon are phenomenal. Both have Gengar, and Ardos has Aerodactyl, Jolteon, Gengar, Starmie, Sceptile, extremely fast Pokemon to deal with. And Eldis has Latios and Latias, in tandem with a Choice Band Tauros, who only has 3 moves, by the way. Return, Iron Tail, and Earthquake. These last 2 are when Orre Colosseum completely takes the shackles off. It's no joke. And you will have difficulty with the trainers before the bosses. They're nothing to laugh at. There's this one trainer who has water type Pokemon in the semifinal. That team is deadly. Absolutely deadly. With Marowak and Manectric as Lightning Rod users. And a Gyarados that Dragon Dance Hidden Power flyings in your face. Even the opponents before the boss fights are going to probably kick your ass. Now, you may want to partake in the Orre Colosseum challenge with exclusively Pokemon XD Pokemon that you caught in the campaign. Now, I'd like to mention some great Pokemon to use in Orre Colosseum, especially the ones that you get in the campaign, because not everybody has access to trading, so I have to be very cognizant of that when I speak on this topic. So there's Pokemon such as Starmie. Starmie was one of the aces of both my single player and doubles experience. I mean, who would have thought? With Starmie, you have coverage such as Waterfall or Hydro Pump. You can't use Surf because it's weakened due to the spread damage. So if you are trading from your Game Boy, you want to run Waterfall or Hydro Pump, not Surf. Hydro Miss is not only a little difficult to get because you have to wait to evolve your Staryu, and if you're impatient like me, you don't wait. But Waterfall is more accurate, but only 80 damage, so you pick and choose your battles. Tauros is famously really effective. I mean, you see the final boss use Tauros for a reason, and they have competitively viable teams to this day. Snorlax, absolute titan, helps out a lot against the trainer Ebsen that uses the legendary dogs or the legendary beasts and the legendary birds. Snorlax is an MVP, and like many other people tend to do, they'll teach Snorlax self-destruct. If you want to do that and cheese your way through fights, you could use self-destruct Snorlax with Helping Hand Duskull that you evolve in the Dusclops, and your Dusclops is immune to explosion or self-destruct, and you boost self-destruct's power. That alone, played well, can get you through a good chunk of Orre Colosseum. Another underrated choice for Orre Colosseum is Marowak. Because Pokemon XD gives you the thick club, Marowak's power is exponentially boosted even without EV training. Even without the best nature, Marowak is going to hit like a truck. And with the Lightning Rod ability, like I mentioned earlier, you can use a Starmie or another water type or flying type, and the CPUs will go for Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt will simply be redirected, and the CPUs will make the same mistake over and over again. So Lightning Rod is a fantastic ability, and Marowak is extremely strong. You have Lapras. You could use the legendary birds if you want. You could use Salamence. Intimidate is extremely viable in doubles, as many would know due to Incineroar, right? In VGC. You could get a Wild Flygon for all I care and use Earthquake, and you're pretty fast at that. Therefore, there's numerous choices. Like I mentioned earlier, Dusclops, if you want. But even Arcanine. Arcanine is great. Arcanine is great too. In conclusion, Orre Colosseum is the best conclusion to the Pokemon Colosseum and XD series. It is a love letter of sorts, where you fight enemies with various strategies. The replayability is infinite, because when you win, like I mentioned earlier in this video, you will be gifted battle coupons, so you are rewarded for replaying this. There is no level advantage, so it will be challenging each time you play. Some of the recommended items: the Salic Berry that you can get from Mount Battle with enough coupons, the Pitaya Berry if you're using any substitute strategies, which you do get one substitute, Leftovers, which comes with Snorlax, the Choice Band, which is another item you can acquire at Mount Battle or trade in from another game. For example, Choice Band Snorlax with Self-Destruct, you could totally do that if it has Earthquake and Shadow Ball and Body Slam. You could do Choice Band Metagross. It's not in the game, but you get my point. Choice Band is lethal and potent. It's going to help you out. The Lumberry prevents cheesy freezes or paralysis. You always essentially want a Pokemon with a Lumberry, and because it's items clause, you can't have all the same items. So, you know how I mentioned Marowak? Nobody else is going to have Thick Club. So Marowak is great for items clause. Now, if you made it this far, that means you watched almost an hour-long video of a guy passionately rambling about Pokemon XD. And I really thank you for that. This is going to be my first video on my channel. I'd like to make many more like this. If you guys love it, then I love that. And I'd love to keep putting out Pokemon videos. I could record my Pokemon Emerald Frontier challenges. I'd love to do that. My goal was to teach you something today. If you walk away with something that you didn't even know about Pokemon XD, I'd be so fortunate. I'd be very happy. And I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a passion project. I've been meaning to make it. I kept putting it off, but finally, here it is. So thank you for watching, everyone, and take care.